Hey everybody, welcome back to another news roundup. Hope you guys been enjoying the content on the channel. As of late, we have got a lot of news to discuss for today. Lots of trailers. I'll just say right now, we're not going to discuss all the trailers because I know that New York Comic Con is happening right now. So as I'm recording this, there's probably a Karate Kid trailer that's looking to come out. So I'll probably talk about that on the next news roundup if I feel like talking about it. Um, but we got a lot of stuff here, so I'm just gonna get through the stuff that I have now, just because there's a lot to discuss. So let's just dive right on in. So the first thing we're going to discuss is going to be around Joker 2. Now we talked a lot about Joker 2 on the last news roundup, and it's shaping up to be, as we've illustrated, quite the disaster. And well, it's not been rebounding. So uh, yeah, looks like it's going to be losing the company Warner Brothers millions. According to Variety, sources claim that the company is looking to lose around 150 to 200 million dollars on the sequel, which the studio has denied reports as credible. And the studio's also now readjusted their projections on what Foley Adux should make to quote break even, dropping their initial 450 million projections to 375 million, with sources suggesting the film's lifetime gross may reach as high as 215 million. Uh, yeah. And as per the second weekend of its release, the film dropped a historic 81%, which makes it the highest drop for any comic book film in history, recently held up by The Marvels from last year at 78%. And one of the highest drops for a film, generally speaking, opening in nearly 2,000 theaters. So, as a general investment, Joker Folie à Deux was a $300 million investment. So there was $200 million that was put into production cost and at least $100 million that was put into marketing. So just so we understand the kind of investment that we're talking about here. The film is quickly heading off to digital. It will be seeing a digital release on October 29th, nearly 3 weeks after its theatrical release. So yeah, it's shaping up to be quite the failure. Now, I think the studio is right to deny these reports about, the about the losses being like 150 to 200 million. I think they're right to deny those reports because I think it's even worse than what these analysts are suggesting. Because we're talking about a $300 million investment, and taking into account the math of films needing to perform double or triple, in this case triple, to be considered profitable, with that price tag, a $300 million investment, we're talking about a film that needs to do at least $1 billion. And clearly it won't. And I don't want to hear that there wasn't, uh, those are high expectations. How can you think a film like this should do? Why would you think that? Did you see how the first one performed? I mean, yeah, of course the company wants to capitalize on that and generate similar numbers. So don't sit there and say that, oh, well, the company wasn't expecting this film to do that great. They wanted to replicate that success. That's the entire point of greenlighting a sequel. So to replicate the kind of financial success that was there. Um, to match the profits made in the first one, because remember the first one was made for very cheap, like 60 million. If you want the same profits to be there, you have to do triple the cost of this investment in order to truthfully break even. So I think at this point, I think the studio is just essentially letting the chips fall where they may, but they're not going to come out outright with exact figures. They know it's a failure. They absolutely know it's a failure, and everyone knows it's a failure. They're just not going to tell you how big of a failure it actually is. And I'm betting it's a lot bigger than what's being reported out there. My guess, probably closer to like 400. I would even go as far as say closer to $500 million. I'm not joking on that. Like it's a colossal failure, guys. A huge failure. So, or what they might do to alleviate damages, I actually think that they might use an insurance payout. I mean, look at Mission Impossible for example. I mean, they used an insurance payout and no one mentioned it, right? So it's possible, so that they don't have to worry as much on the actual number, which I've said is probably bigger than what's publicly being discussed. So who knows? Who knows? But yeah, it's a big failure for them. And man, talk about pressure on James Gunn, for that Superman film he has coming out next year. Man, there's unbelievable pressure now for that movie to do well because we've had now 5 bombs from DC in a row. Last year we had like 4 films that didn't do well, and now we have this. And this film, mind you, is kickstarting off a rebooted universe. So yeah, there's going to be a lot of pressure for that film to succeed, and I would hate to be James Gunn right now. So yeah, it's just a big failure for for the company, and I don't think they're actually going to tell you how big of a failure it is. My guess is a lot bigger than those reports are actually stating. So there you have that. Now, following up from talking more about Warner Brothers proper, something interesting was brought up about with the announcement of Christopher Nolan's latest film, which we've talked about in the last news roundup. There was an article that came out, I believe, from Variety that that detailed apparently Warner Brothers' attempt to try to get Christopher Nolan back. So, in an attempt to lure Christopher Nolan back to their studio, the company decided to send, as a good gesture, a 7-figure check that carries the fees that he initially had to waiver in order to get Tenet into theaters. Now, at the time of which Tenet would have been released, Warner Brothers had launched their their same-day plan strategy on HBO Max, which saw all their movies get dumped onto their streaming platform with, mind you, no contact made with any of the creatives or certain executives, and a lot of people got pissed off over that. And Christopher Nolan was one of those people. And in order to prevent Tenet from falling into that strategy, he forfeited, apparently, according to this article, some fees in order for the film to see a theatrical release in 2020, which ultimately it proved to be a failure. But for Nolan's case, what he cares more about is quality, the quality of the film, the presentation of his films, rather than the quantity of how much his movies make. So, I mean, he does care to a certain extent, but between the two, it seems that Nolan cares more for, for better quality of presentation than quantity. So, and as a result of that, I mean, Nolan felt betrayed, having to forfeit his own money and, all that sort of jazz. And then, of course, with the whole HBO Max debacle of not being informed about what was going to happen with his film, having to be dumped on streaming potentially, and he himself doing things, to alleviate that. He, went off to do Oppenheimer, which would be his next film, with Universal Pictures instead. And now he's extending that relationship further with his newest film, which reportedly is actually looking to be in the realm of espionage this time around. So, but yeah, Warner Bros. Tried to get Nolan back and failed. And, with more information of behind the scenes decisions like that, it's even more understanding why Nolan decided to jump ship, because basically, as I illustrated, he had to forfeit some of his own money to prevent a decision that he was not even made contact with or discussed with by any studio execs or what have you. Like, no one informed anybody about that strategy, and Nolan was one of those. So, like anyone, and that's at that time, they were just caught unawares. So I mean, writing him out the money he gave, while it's a nice gesture on the company's part, it's frankly just a nice gesture. I mean, it's not going to change the dynamics. It won't grant him control over his projects, and it certainly won't provide him any more security, over his projects. That's why he's sticking with Universal. They're treating him as an auteur, which really is becoming a dying breed in this industry. And really, I'm not confident Nolan really holds that title much anymore. And to illustrate, auteur in the film business just means name value. That's really what it means. I mean, auteurs obviously mean a different thing, in the artistry, artistically speaking, there's a different meaning behind that. But in the film world, auteurs or Hollywood proper auteurs are just people drawing name value, people who still have value to their name, people who can draw numbers based purely on their name. And Nolan is certainly still one of those. I don't know if that's still holding as much water, but, just to be fair. But they're Universal. They treat him, to at least to his standards properly. And Warner Brothers, well, they probably would have mandated certain decisions, which to some extent they should. Just look at Joker 2 as an example. Like, they probably should, but it's a statement really about Nolan's credibility. It's not about the money, and it's not about this and that. It's about the people. It's about good working relationships. It's about getting the standards of which he desires. And, it's to be commended to some extent. But, it's basically just, like that whole strategy, it just basically just changed the dynamics of that relationship. And it just really just put a stain on it. So, just... yeah, it just sucks to be Warner Brothers right now, dude. It just really sucks to be Warner Brothers right now, with Joker 2 being the bomb that it was, with now this. It's just like, man, dude, it really just sucks to be them right now. So yeah, Nolan's probably not going to be working with Warner Brothers for the foreseeable future. Probably staying with Universal longer term. So, and frankly, good, because Warner Brothers fucked around, and that's what happens when you don't inform anybody about crucial decisions like that. You're gonna lose some support. So, all right, let's get into some other news. It appears that we are getting another American Psycho. American Psycho, of course, released in the early 2000s with Christian Bale. Gotta be honest, don't remember much about American Psycho. Oddly, I remember like the last few minutes, but not really much else, really. Not a film that really dawns on me. I remember liking it, but I don't remember much of it. So Luca Guadagnino, whose most recent work includes Bones and All and Challengers, 2 films that we've discussed on this channel, 2 films of which I also didn't really like. He is in final negotiations to develop a, quote, new interpretation of American Psycho for Lionsgate. It'll be written by Scott Z. Burns, who's frequently wrote many of Steven Soderbergh's work, including Contagion, Side Effects, The Informant, and The Laundromat. So he'll be taking up writing duties for this, and there's no release date yet. And Luca Guadagnino has a couple of films in the works, one of which I believe is coming out this year, called Queer, which stars Daniel Craig's been getting some buzz around the festival scene. But looks like we're getting another American Psycho. Sounds like a reimagination of sorts. I don't know. Well, if you're familiar with Guadagnino's work, especially as of late, it basically sounds like it's going to be a more, I wouldn't say erotic, but kind of dipping its toes into that sort of sphere. More horny, likely homosexual interpretation of this narrative, because he's really made a point in his career to emphasize and capitalize on gay depictions, which isn't a bad thing at all. Just taking note of that. So I can't say that that's anything new per se, and I wouldn't be shocked, frankly, if that's the new angle of which they're discussing, because I don't see any point to remake this, but then again, it's pretty much most remakes out there, right? So I appreciate his aesthetics. I always am curious to see the potential within his filmmaking, but lately it's just never resonated with me. So I don't really, and like I said, I don't remember much about the original film, so I don't really care. I don't really care about this, especially thinking as to what the new quote unquote new interpretation is going to be. It's more likely going to be like kind of leaning towards erotica or leaning towards, just a certain hormonal, depiction. So, but who knows? And we'll see. We'll see how that develops. But I just don't care. So, alrighty. We've got a lot of trailers to discuss for today. So I'm gonna try to get through these briefly, just because I don't really have much thoughts on most of these. But yeah, let's start right off. So the first trailer we're going to be discussing is for a film called The Monkey. This stars Theo James, Tatiana Maslany, She-Hulk, basically, and Elijah Wood. This is being written and directed by Oz Perkins, the guy who gave us Long Legs this year, which turned financially, just did very, very well, and also did a film called Gretel and Hansel. This has a release date of February 21st, 2025, and I believe also a Stephen King thing, if I remember based on the trailer. It's a Stephen King adaptation. So, yeah, I mean, as much as it appears to be like a standard possession type scenario, as far as I remember from the trailer, there's an atmosphere there that suggests a comedic undertone that I think can be more tasteful or intriguing than with something like Long Legs, which, based on the marketing, appeared to be like taking its material much more seriously and darker. And frankly, it seemed a little more harder to digest, at least for my taste. And frankly, just by marketing, also, I just didn't really find it to be as appealing. But this one seems a little bit more appealing for me. So I'm curious, but that's as far as I'll take it for now. Because we'll see as time goes on. But curious. I can admire the tone. The tone is a little bit more flavorful, I think, than what Long Legs seem to be. So. All right. Next trailer we're going to discuss is the brief teaser, I guess an announcement trailer, for Wallace and Gromit, Vengeance Most Vile. This starring, of course, Peter Kay, Ben Whitehead, who is taking over the vocal duties for Wallace, who, unfortunately the voice actor passed away, and Reese Shearsmith, being directed by Nick Park, who of course is the creator of Wallace and Gromit, also directed Chicken Run as well as Shaun the Sheep. So big creative involved at the, I believe it's Aardman Pictures. So this has a release date of January 3rd, 2025, worldwide on Netflix. And I always love Wallace and Gromit. I love this duo and their sketches. Really enjoyed watching them as a kid. And I weirdly enough had an odd thing with British programming as a child. Like, I really wasn't into a lot of the American stuff, like the Rugrats and shit. Like, that never really got to me. I really liked this. I don't know if you guys have ever seen Kipper the dog, like stuff like that. I don't know why that stuff like was more interesting to me compared to a lot of their American television. I mean, I had my stuff too, but it was like kind of in the corner, not really like the prominence that a lot of what kids were watching at the time. But yeah, I love this duo, and I gotta say the new voice for Wallace is unfucking canny. Like, it is just solid. Whoever, Ben Whitehead, like, that voice is just just amazing. Really, really great. I would not have guessed that it was another person, based on his interpretation or how he's doing it. So I remember enjoying their first feature, because this is the second feature film, the first one being The Curse of Were-Rabbit, which I remember liking. So I'm looking forward to seeing another. Always love, it's always lovely to see this animation, claymation and stop motion. It's always nice to see it return in prominence. So So yeah, I am very much looking forward to seeing another feature with these two. So yeah, so I am definitely looking forward to it. All right, next trailer we gotta discuss is for the Legend of Ochi. I think that's how you say it. Latest from A24, and this is a directorial debut for a guy named Asia Saxon. Please say his name. This stars Helena Zengel, who I actually saw in News of the World with Tom Hanks. Remember, she was alright in. Finn Wolfhard, as well as Emily Watson and Willem Dafoe. And this has a release date for February 28th, 2025. And it's essentially A24's bite at E.T. with with an oddly absurdist aesthetic and attitude embedded. Um, like, I really can't pinpoint the feeling of which the trailer is seeking to pull out of the viewer, because visually, it seems to have taken a page from Monty Python, but the narrative seeks to promote an emotional center that echoes that of like a Spielberg classic, or that like E.T. specifically, it has that adventurous attitude, narratively speaking, but on a visual front, it has like this weird absurdist quality to it. So, so I'm not sure about the two. Those I'm not sure if the style is complementary to the narrative, but I can appreciate the puppetry. Gotta love that. I love that they, are not just. I mean, it seems like they're doing a mixture of CG and puppetry, but I can appreciate that they're actually trying to go practical. But I can't say that the mixture of elements, like I said, with this tone, with the narrative and the style, I just don't know if it works well together, because it seems more like it's acting apart from each other. Because I'm just not entirely sure visually what it's trying to do, how I'm supposed to make of those choices, and how it reflects or kind of elevates the story itself. Like, it's just kind of odd visually speaking, and I don't know if it's intended or not. So generally speaking, though, it looks fine. I mean, nothing too outstanding or great. Just looks okay. I just visually speaking, I just find it a little strange. Just don't know visually what they're trying to do. It seems more of like a clash than anything. So, so yeah, not really interested. Just more interested to know visually what they're trying to get at and how that informs the narrative. So. All right. Next trailer we're going to discuss is for a teaser for The Electric State. This is the Russo brothers' next film. Of course, the Russos being heavily involved at Marvel Studios with Infinity War, Endgame, and of course, Civil War. Outside of that, they've done films such as Cherry and The Gray Man. And they're now working again with Netflix after working with them on The Gray Man for The Electric State. The stars Millie Bobby Brown, Chris Pratt, Giancarlo Esposito, Jenny Slate, Ki Hu Kwan, hopefully I said his name right, and Stanley Tucci. This has a release date on Netflix for March 14th, 2025. And I gotta say, this seems fairly dry to me. Like, I mean, aesthetically, I think it looks kind of neat, but man, like, I could care less about the overarching narrative that they're trying to get at with like oppression or need to reconnect with our humanity. Like, it's utilizing ideas that are so apparent in this genre, and it's just not holding as much water. Like, it seems like Blade Runner is a small thematic inspiration. And I've heard from people who read the book that apparently it's not a good accurate. It's not an accurate depiction of the book, which is apparently a lot more serious compared to the more lighthearted nature this is taking. Um, yeah, I just don't really care. Like, I could see myself getting bored watching this. Um, Also, the fucking budget on this thing, dude. Holy shit. It's like a $300 million investment from what I saw. If that's legit, that's That's just wild. And pretty telling when that much money can still generate something fairly unremarkable, at least in my eyes. Bless me. It just goes to show you, dude, that these directors aren't that great. Like, I really didn't care for Cherry. I thought The Gray Man was really boring. So, I really think it demonstrates how just, like I said, like in discussion of the film, just pretty unremarkable that these directors are. So I don't really care, and I doubt many will either, really. So that's just how I feel about it. So, and finally, to discuss briefly, as it just came out today, we have the official trailer now for Wolfman. This, of course, starring Christopher Abbott and Julia Gardner, and Leigh Whannell, who directed The Invisible Man, is taking up directing duties and co-writing. And this has a release date of January 17th, 2025. Now, we talked about the teaser, and there wasn't really much to go on, so that's the main reason why I'm checking this out, because we have a full trailer now with a lot more details, getting a lot more of a sense of, the filmmaking and all that. And I feel like I've seen the entire story. Based on this trailer, I feel like I've seen the whole story. Doesn't feel like there's much more surprises for the film. And it's unreasonably self-contained in its respect. Like, I think the story absolutely, just to clarify, I do think that the story should be isolating. I definitely think it should. But what I thought they were going to do was to make it ambiguous as to who was the Wolfman. I mean, we know for a fact who was going to be the Wolfman by it. But narratively speaking, like, kind of play around with the concept of, like, who may or may not be the Wolfman amongst this, like, trio, like kind of presenting like a psychological descent in a family trio, echoing that of like The Shining, for example. But it's basically all knowing. I mean, I think by the teaser, actually, it was pretty knowing as to who was, what was going on. But I thought they were going to make it a little more, mysterious, I guess, but leaning on that idea. But no, it's pretty all knowing and kind of basically relying upon the anticipation of the transformation, which really isn't that compelling or interesting. And it's really looking flat, dude. Like, it's weirdly enough seems to be taking cues from A Quiet Place, environmentally speaking, like the house that kind of echoes that. And I swear that there was some audio that's also used from A Quiet Place, like the monstrous sound effects sound like that creature from A Quiet Place. And the establishment of the story, like they lose a child from the hands of the monster. It's like, it seems like they're kind of taking a few cues from that specific film. So, but yeah, based on what I've seen, I'm really not that interested. Now getting a better look at it, just not really much for me. And that reveal of the Wolfman, like, I really hope that's not the final form, because it looks like a cheap Halloween mask. Like that shot of him in the window, God, that looks so cheap. So I hope that's not the final form. So we'll see. But you guys will see. I personally don't have much interest to see this. So, because he brought in The Invisible Man. Like, that was a way better film compared to the original. So it's just kind of unfortunate to see diminishing returns for his next jab at the Universal monsters. So, would have preferred what Ryan Gosling and the other director were going to do. That seemed a lot more interesting compared to what we got here. So, and it sounds like, creatively speaking, there probably would have been something more fascinating compared to what we actually got. So, but yeah, don't really care. Probably won't check it out. Just doesn't really grab me. So. But yeah, those are my thoughts on all the news for this week, guys. Just a lot of news, kind of went through rapid fire. So yeah, hope you guys enjoyed this video. You guys let me know your thoughts on all these topics in the comment section below. Your thoughts on Joker 2, your guys' thoughts on Warner Brothers basically struggling right now, American Psycho getting another remake, or another iteration. All these trailers coming out, and yeah, I know we have like a Karate Kid thing and something else that might be released later tonight, but I'm just gonna plug that into the next news roundup for next week because we got a lot of stuff that we're talking about in this video, so just don't want to make it wait too long. But you guys let me know your thoughts on all these things in the comment section below, and that's gonna be it for this video, guys. Thank you guys for tuning in, and until then, I will catch you guys in the next video. Bye.